Tell me about the meditation. Is meditation all about blanking out your mind, pausing your mind, or are we? Give me that detail.
Well, we can talk about meditation with some of the latest technology. And when you and I are in a conversation like this and we're chatting, our brainwave patterns are in a state of wakefulness. In other words, as you and I are discussing this information, if we were to look at an electroencephalographic reading of our brains would be in what's called a beta state. In other words, our neocortex would be firing information, and it would be trying to integrate all the information that we're talking about, everything in the external world, with what's going on inside of us. So when we're functioning in beta, the outer world is more real than the inner world. Now, that's important for us because we function in 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions, and we have to keep our attention on the outer world. Now, when we react to things in our life, stressful situations in our life, our brain goes from what's called a low level of beta, that we're just hanging out and relaxing and talking, to a mid-range beta, which is a little bit more vigilant, all the way to a high-range beta where you're overly analytical, you're overly focused, your brain is in a very incoherent state, you're in emergency mode, and no new information can enter into your nervous system that isn't equal to the emotion that you're experiencing. So in that state, you don't want to learn, you don't want to grow, you don't want to have ideas or create long-term building projects because you're in emergency. And in emergency, you're not interested in growth and repair. You're interested in the immediate moment and the emergency that's related to it. Now, when you're in that state, you're pretty much in an analytical mode of thinking. You're always evaluating the next moment based on the past moment. You're thinking in polarity, good and bad, success and failure, right and wrong, positive and negative. Because the brain is divided in half, we're constantly doing that. When you close your eyes and you begin to eliminate the external environment, and your brain is no longer processing anything visually, 80% of our input comes from our sight, our spatial orientation. The moment we begin to eliminate that the external environment, we play soft music in the background and we're not hearing ambient sounds, the neocortex isn't thinking or putting its attention on the external world any longer, and it begins to slow down its processing. It becomes less analytical. And the moment that happens, we move into what's called an alpha state. And in alpha, according to the research, the inner world is more real than the outer world. In other words, what you're thinking about or dreaming about seems to be more real than the external environment. Now, this is an important place to be because this is when you begin to move from the conscious mind through the analytical mind into the operating system of the subconscious where all those habits and behaviors and programs exist. Now, when we move into this alpha state, we have periods where we lose track of time and space. Because as the frontal lobe begins to process new information and you're attending to one idea or one concept, it doesn't want to be distracted by all the extraneous stimulation. So it acts like a volume control. And it begins to lower the volume in the circuits of the rest of your brain that are connected to the environment, that are connected to your body, that are connected to time. And if there's no brain activity in those areas of different regions of your brain to process your body, environment, and time, then you are no body, you are no thing, you are no time. Now, this state of dissociation, this moment where you become nothing, is the moment you are becoming pure consciousness. And when you're living in those emergency states, you're over-focused on your body, you're over-focused on your external environment, and you're obsessing about time. And you begin to define reality with your senses. We become materialists. We begin to focus on the very small portion of the atom instead of on the possibilities of the atom. Now, if an atom is 99.99999% nothing possibility and 0.000001% particle or physical material, that when we're living in emergency or by the hormones of stress, we're focusing on the particle and we're missing the waves of possibility. When we move into this elegant state of creation, when we become no body, no thing, no time, and we have all the machinery to do this, that moment where you are focusing on nothing, you forget about yourself, You forget about your problems. You forget about your relationships, your kids, your dogs, your husband, your wife, your problems, what you do for a living. You're no longer processing that same level of mind that keeps your reality the same. That's the moment you move into the quantum field. See, you can't enter the quantum field as a somebody. You have to enter as a nobody. You have to enter as pure consciousness. Now, when you enter in this state of pure consciousness, that's the moment we have dominion over the body. That's when we can begin to change something in our environment. That's when we can alter time in some way. And so, because we have all this neurological machinery to do it, it means then that we clear the slate of living in the past, becoming completely present in the moment. Now, most people, when they hit this point, they think I arrived at this place, and because there's an elevated emotion that comes with it, and that elevated emotion that begins to come up with it is that come up means that we're no longer thinking certain thoughts that make certain feelings, and those feelings drive the same thoughts that create the same feelings. And the majority of those feelings are derived in the hormones of stress, our survival centers, our sexuality, our digestion, our power and control and importance and fear and guilt. If you're no longer firing the same circuits in your brain that are making the same chemicals, you've really vacated biologically. That energy has to go somewhere, and it has to move out of those survival centers, and it moves up into the heart on the way to the brain, and you begin to fall in love with the present moment. You begin to feel free. You begin to feel like there's possibility. You feel like you're connected to something. You feel like you're seeing things that you never examined before. And this liberation of energy is literally the body moving from the past to the present. Now, most people stop there because it's such an amazing feeling. And what it is it's that a divine consciousness that we're connected to beginning to bleed out of us. It's beginning to move through us. It's beginning to consume us. And I call that the natural state of being. Now, once you get into that natural state of being, and you feel so amazing, why not use those emotions and that energy to create a new destiny? So in our meditations, we don't just say, move from the past emotions that have become part of our identity into nothing in the present. We say, now that you're in the present, we've just cleared the chalkboard. We've just wiped the board clean. Now you have available energy to create a new future with. So who do you want to be? And begin to design who you will be. Create a new personality, because a new personality is ultimately going to lead you to a new personal reality.
Wow, that is brilliant, brilliant.